And we are live. It's another great day at Gribble TV. So glad to have the amazing Sydnee Myers here, the AI PM, the person in charge, the brains behind the Cribble AI project. Thank you for being here today. How are you doing?
Yeah, thanks, Ed. Always happy to be here. Another great day to talk about AI and Cribble, so that's always exciting. And things are good. We have a lot coming. I know I teased a little bit in our last video, but very much keep an eye out for the end of July, is what I have to say.
Well, I can't wait. I'm just the feedback I've been getting about Copilot Editor with being able to map to OCFS has been really great. And so this is great. I understand that you want to talk about using Copilot Cribble Search.
Yeah, so I think we've spent a lot of time talking about like our Cribble Copilot chat, and that's a good place for people to get started, a good entry point, ask questions, do some troubleshooting, etc. We've talked a lot about Copilot Editor and the magic that happens there. But I think it's a good opportunity to kind of come back on like, what do we have in search for our search users? How can we help with stuff like, not being as familiar with KQL, or even if you are familiar, not always knowing the query, how to create visualizations and dashboards. As much as I'm a visual person, that's not my strong suit either. So I totally understand like how difficult it can be. So I thought might be nice to have some time to kind of dive into the product and explain some of the scenarios where we see people using Copilot for search, and just give people a sneak preview at what else is coming.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. So I owned a large in previous life owned a large implementation where I had thousands of users and having a tool, spending all the money on the tool is rather pointless if your users don't know how to use the tool. And
Yeah.
that's such an issue because people don't care whether it's SQL, it's KQL, SPL, they want to get their job done and get it done with as little trouble as possible. Uh, and users and organizations have to learn so many tools. I was sitting meeting about with an organization 3 weeks ago. I almost fell out of my chair. This is just a security org, and they said, "Yeah, we have 61 tools," and it's just like that's just brutal. And so the idea is that you want to help the ordinary average person get what they need and go on with their life. And that's something I think that's really interesting about Copilot for Search because I think it genuinely it lets users do that, and I think that's great. I'm so glad you can show that off.
Yeah, definitely. And to your point, I mean, the amount of tools we have, even as someone who builds Cribble and lives in Cribble, we use tons of other things here, right? And trying to remember like commands for, I don't know, cursor versus Cribble versus going into AWS and remembering what we have in Looker when we're trying to do metrics. Like it's insane the amount of places you need to know different coding languages, different querying languages. I mean, I can only imagine with 60 plus tools how tough that must be managing a pretty high stress environment like security.
And imagine also you have large organizations, you're going to have a lot of low-level employees that come and go, and you need productivity right away. You can't wait for 6 months for a ramp time to learn how to use a query language. And frankly, at the end of the day, most people want to it's fairly simple what most people are looking for. And this is
Yep.
something I like about it. So Copilot supports that use case, but we also have tooling in Copilot and in KQL. If you know what you're doing, you do whatever you want.
Yep, absolutely. I think that's like just something I really enjoy about the way that we put our AI forward for customers in general. Like AI is an enhancement. It's never going to be something that you're tied to. You have to do it. It's required. We always want it to be that additional, that add-on, that superpower. And so, when we dive into the demo in a second, we can kind of see what it looks like in the product. I think it's always super important to highlight like Copilot is there. It's your helper. It's not going to block the screen. It's not going to tell you have to do it this way. We want to make sure that people have the comfort level to feel like, okay, I'm a super user. I don't want AI to jump in here. I want it done a specific way. Awesome. We want to empower you. And if you're not a super user, you're just like, oh man, I don't remember which pipe I'm supposed to put and what word I'm supposed to use, then great. Copilot can help with those things, but we want to be flexible to cover everyone, right? Anyone should be able to come into search and use the product to be able to identify what's in their data sets.
Also, I would emphasize so Cribble University has great training courses for search. But this also comes back to large organizations. Like for example, I could get my directs to all take training, but getting everyone who potentially uses the search tools that I own, that's another story. And so I just like that we offer, you can really get to know Cribble Search through Cribble University, but also Copilot just helps that casual user who needs to use it, just they can get what they need just and get it done.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. So before we dive in, I thought I'd call out some of the things we're going to see today just to give
Sure.
people kind of the landscape. So we have two major AI features within search today. One is called natural language to KQL, or you can think of it in terms of like, I just have a query I want to write. I know what I want to say. I know what kind of data I'm looking for, but I don't actually know how to write it in KQL. So we have a place for you to just put in plain English what you're trying to look for in your data set, and Cribble Copilot will help you actually generate the KQL for that and run the query. The second piece to this, we actually have follow-on queries. So sometimes it's like, okay, I've done my first query. What's next? Like, what should I go look for next? Maybe I'm just perusing data. Maybe I'm trying to get a sense of what's in the data set. So we do offer some cues of like, what are some other follow-up queries that could be useful to you? Again, not required, but you have the opportunity to say, okay, I looked at 1,000 rows in this data set. What's the first thing I should go investigate? Follow-up queries is a good way to get a cue for that, to get a sense of like, what are some things I should look at or could look at. And then we'll switch over to the dashboarding and visualization side of search. And there's kind of two ways that you can use our Cribble Copilot for search visualization features. One is if I know I want to visualize a data set, we have a visualize button, and Copilot will just come up with recommendations. So you'll have like a list of recommendations in there that basically say like, here are some things very similar to follow-up queries. Here are like 3 different tiles you could put inside of a dashboard based on visualizations from what we see in your data set. You can even go one step further if you want to customize and say, I actually want to give specific instructions to Copilot. Help me build, XYZ type of visualization. And it will take that cue and actually build that out in a few different views. So maybe you want a donut chart versus a bar chart versus a line chart, something of that nature. It can help you get those different options and then select something that matches the type of visualization you're looking for. So we'll show both sides of that just to kind of give people a preview of what's in there. And then, we are always open to hearing feedback of what else you want in Search, Lake, Edge, Cribble Cloud in general, Stream. So I hope this gets people excited to use a bit more Copilot inside of Search, but also gives them some ideas of, maybe there's some other things in Search we haven't thought about that we want to put out the door.
Sounds great. You're ready?
Ready. Let's do it.
All right, demo away.
Awesome. So here we are in my search environment. You'll see a couple of things here. I just have some available data sets, my sample searches, I have a history, and then everything you normally see on the left-hand side. If you haven't checked out Search Packs, shameless plug, please check out Search Packs. They are awesome. So first and foremost, as far as data sets go, if you were with us a couple weeks back when I was here with 2 other colleagues, Nikhil and Giovanni, you will have seen Giovanni walk through a demo of Copilot Editor, where he kind of walked through the transformation of Palo Alto network logs into OCSF. I'm actually going to use that exact same data set today. So you'll see my Palo Alto traffic OCSF logs here. I also have the raw version here. We're actually just going to stick with the OCSF version for today. So I'm actually going to start with the visualization because I think it's great to jump into straight from here. So when we're talking visualization, if I just hit this visualize button next to my data set, I'll get a little panel over here, and I can actually generate some visualizations. So we'll let those pop up. And my searchers are queued, so it's kind of pulling them up. And you can see I have different protocols, different source IPs, and a bar chart, and a distribution of events here. Maybe I'm not interested in any of these things. Maybe I want to give Copilot even more suggestions, or I want to write my own. So you'll notice I have a few other suggestions that it makes here, in addition to the visualizations that were already provided to me. Or I can just write my own and customize it. I kind of like the idea of understanding what IP addresses I have. So maybe I want to see a visual where IP with all of my IP addresses.
I like how you can use a natural language query too.
Exactly, right? Like I don't need to know a lot about the data set. I don't even need to know field names. I just know I want to see a visual with all of my IP addresses. And so we'll go ahead and send that to Copilot. Copilot is going to take this natural language query, and you'll notice it's not even a great query. I just kind of give it like a raw free-form thought, and it shows me some different visualizations here. So frequency of IP addresses, or like as far as where the destination is, these are going to Splunk. You can see the distribution of my source IP addresses here, and then you can see kind of a connection or a map between various IP addresses depending on what country they're coming from. So this is just 3 examples of visualizations based on the query that I gave. If I were to add more natural language, be more descriptive, change the way that I talk about it, you would see these update as well. So for my scenario, right, I actually really like this distribution of source IP addresses. I have the opportunity to open this query back in Search if I want to see it. I also have the opportunity to add it to a dashboard from here. So this is a good place to just kind of start to build a dashboard. I think sometimes the starting is some of the most difficult aspect. But it's a good opportunity to see, like, I don't necessarily have to customize. I can go back to the suggestions that were made here, and I could pick something from this
So
suggestion.
how are those suggestions generated?
Yeah, so Copilot looks at the data set based on what I've picked. So I came from this pan traffic OCSF, and then it looks at a few samples, about 5 events, and kind of captures like what are the fields involved in those events, what type of data is in there, and then provides suggestions based on the read that it has of that data. So it does kind of a quick classification.
So just and also just from for the inevitable questions about regulatory questions, is Copilot remembering that data? Is it Copilot learning? Is it Copilot saving that customer data?
Yeah, great question. Copilot is not learning, it is not training or using that data for anything. It doesn't remember it after these queries. So if I actually exit from this visualized data set and come back in, all of it will be gone. It's going to do another recapture. So it's not storing that information. It's just using it for the purpose of actually providing me these specific visualizations in this specific moment.
Okay.
So everything is done within the context of my queries at this point in time.
And that's key. That's very important. I think justifiably so. I hear a lot of feedback from companies that they're just really, really concerned about what's happening to their data. Where's it going? How's it being used?
Absolutely, right? And as they should, those are questions that they want to make sure they ask any provider, including Kerbal, which is why we want to make sure we're as transparent as possible with our customers on these topics. So, just to give a quick recap of what we saw here, I came in through my data set, I hit this visualization button. It took me into this visualize side panel here. And then I had the opportunity to pick the automatically generated visualizations. I could pick one of the suggestions that came up here, or I could write my own, which I used in plain English. You'll notice it already got rid of my query here. So it's gone once I leave that screen. But I think this is just a good place to remember. If you need help building dashboards or you need help to like kind of building a quick visualization, you can come in through this angle. You can actually also come in through the dashboards entry point, go through the same workflow there. So it's a good place to use Copilot to help you kind of build a dashboard and build those visualizations without having to know everything there is to know about this specific data set.
Really neat.
Diving in the other direction, you'll notice I have a similar plain text box here where it describes to me in plain English, describe what you're looking for. So maybe, I just got into my data set. I do a very basic data set, pan traffic, limit 1,000. Maybe I just do a very quick look at what's in this data. So I can see it's like going to Splunk. I can see some IP address information here. I can see my raw field, etc. So I can see a couple of things. Maybe I don't know if all of these are the same type of activity or the same type of category. So maybe I just want to see something like, show me the last 100 events with a category UID of 4, because that's the one thing I see here. So maybe it's a good start to just see like, okay, I just want to see 100 events. I just want to see things where the category is UID 4, and I'm sorting by time. So I'm just automatically putting this query together. To be honest, if it were me, I might not remember where all of the pipes go, where all of the statements go, how to set up the right operators. So this is just a very quick example of being able to scope my data set down even further. If I look down here underneath, this is where I see my follow-up queries. So you'll notice I have 3 different follow-up queries that were suggested to me. My top source IPs, my most used protocols, and then my top destination IPs. I can also get an explanation of my queries as well, which I think is often lost on people. Like, why do I care about this query? What does it do for me? So my top source IPs, for example, just shows me what's active to be able to understand like where is most of my traffic coming from? What IP addresses is that involved with? And you'll see here I have 3 different ones. I'm just going to go ahead and pick one, and you'll notice it updated my query up here. So now I can see all my source IP addresses kind of spread out here. I could also go to the, oops, sorry, I jumped over a little too fast. We'll go back to that. I was saying, using the example of like, I can come back in here and just look at the events. I can look at the fields. I can look at the charts. So you don't have to go to the chart view. It does go over to the chart view, but I can kind of flip back and forth between them. And then you'll notice here up at the top, it actually refreshes my follow-up queries every single time. So good example of like just a place to get some ideas of what to query next. You don't necessarily have to follow them. Maybe I decide I don't want any of these, right? Maybe I want, I don't know, average traffic count instead, or maximum minimum volumes. Or maybe I'm decided actually I want to go back to this, category UID of 4. It'll take me right back to where I was. I can, go back to the query that was generated in here. And if I'm feeling really fancy, I can come in and address, changing this. I can move this to 500 instead of 100, or what have you. So you still very much have the ability to come in and edit as well.
Very cool.
Yeah, so I thought it was worth just kind of following up on. This is what we have in search. If you haven't checked these features out, you definitely should. One last thing I will call out. If you're just having an issue with search and you're like, I'm not sure where to go or what to do next, we always have the Copilot widget down here in the bottom right corner. So it's still available to you, even if you're not using one of the search specific features. Maybe I'm just trying to understand some basic things about Copilot or understand some basic things about Cribble. That widget down in the corner is the place to do that.
That's very cool. And do you mind walking through creating a dashboard and how it optimizes the dashboard?
Sure. Let's see which ones I have
I think
here.
that's underappreciated because people love dashboards, and with every other product, there is a lot of technical basis about how to create an efficient dashboard.
Yeah, so you can see I had I had an open dashboard that I had for testing. I haven't actually put anything in here. This blank slate is where most people spend their time and may or may not know, like, what do I do next? So if I go into the edit, you'll notice that we actually have a couple of options here. I can add a visualization, I can add an input, I can add a markdown. Those are all manual steps. You can go and do those yourself, or I can add visualizations using Copilot as well. So if we come in through this entry point, and one more thing to call out, this is the UI version of building dashboards. If you're more of a code person, there is a JSON version as well, just to throw that out there. So coming back, we had an example that I used a second ago where I was going through my pan traffic OCSF. I could pick any of my data sets here. This basically just gives Copilot the context of the type of data available. And then here, it will actually show me the visualizations that I could start building a dashboard with based off of Copilot. So it's going to take a second to generate these visualizations. Maybe I want to look at protocols. Maybe I want to look at destinations. Maybe I want to look at source IPs. I really like the idea of protocols here. I think this is an interesting view for me to understand what types of protocols we have going. So I'll go ahead and add that to my dashboard.
I like the suggestions, but just to be sure, they can also write a query and add their own visualizations if they have a different idea than what's suggested.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we can go in and customize both through Copilot and just in general. Like if I wanted to come back in here, you'll see my little Copilot button here. I can actually come back in here and say, describe what type of visualization I'm looking for. So it'll do the same thing. It'll give me 3 suggestions based on what we have, but maybe I want something specific. So let's just say, show me all IP. Man, the typing is rough today. Okay, so maybe I didn't like the suggestions that were made, and maybe I want to go with something specific. Like I want to see not just protocols, but I want to see my IP address distribution, or maybe the distinct count of IPs. I kind of like this one. Looks like I'm speeding through the highway. So I can also come in here and do this customization as well, where I don't have to just go with the suggestions that were given to me by Copilot. I can come in and add, my protocols, my source IP address destination. Can also come here and change things. These are all movable and moldable based on what I'm looking for.
And just to also clarify, so this by default, this is writing an efficient search, that the most efficient search we can provide. We're not asking the user to figure out something like a base search.
Correct. Yeah. So there's no actual involvement of you needing to understand what's the best way to search this, what's the right way to search this. We're optimizing for that. We're also doing validations of all KQL. So even if we were to go back to the beginning when I was doing my plain text, like help me find everything category UID, it's not going to be putting out invalid KQL. It does do a validation step to make sure what is suggested by the AI model is valid KQL, is the right way to actually query something. So we are giving people the ability to just go straight into visualization and queries without having to know tons of optimization tricks to do that.
That's great. I think that's really helpful for user enablement because the admin time it takes in order to manage that for the user is substantial. And so this is for, say, for a platform owner, it's a big deal because you're not having to devote employee time, engineering time to this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I don't have to get 10 searches to get to where I'm looking for my answer, right? Like I can do that in 2 searches, 1 search, etc., just by using Copilot. Now, you're always welcome to adapt and change, but it's much easier to adapt and change from a search that is fairly optimized for me rather than trying to start from, pan traffic 1,000 and then let me figure out what are the next 10 searches to get to the specific piece of data I'm looking for.
Exactly.
Awesome. So yeah, just an example of like now, you saw me with my very blank dashboard in here. I can save my dashboard. It will keep these 2 things for me that I used Copilot to create. And I can always reactivate the Copilot visualization feature through here. So you'll see my little Copilot icon up here next to the UI section.
It's really good. I really like the user experience. And this is important for any of the users. We definitely want feedback. So, Sydney, if someone wanted to give you feedback on the user experience or something, what's the best way to do it? Is there a way in Copilot that they can leave feedback, or would you prefer something in the community?
Yeah, so you can go a couple of ways. If you wanted to leave feedback directly, you can technically leave feedback through Copilot. You do have to ask a question first, but it does have a thumbs up, thumbs down, and then you can say specifically what you were looking for. So that is one way we do capture and collect that feedback, review it very, very often, usually a couple times a week. The fastest way to get to me is through Cribble Community. I'm on there daily, so please come and reach out. We do have a Copilot channel specifically, and I'll get the hashtag for that. But that's a good place to just ask questions about Copilot, ask questions about any of our AI features. Myself and a few other moderators go in there pretty much every day to check on what questions are being asked. You can also DM us through there, myself, Nikhil. We're always happy to get feedback, always happy to answer questions. So you have a couple different mechanisms. You can go through Cribble Community. You can go through your account team if you're an existing Cribble customer, or you can leave us feedback through the Copilot widget. It does have the ability to do thumbs up, thumbs down, and then descriptive feedback as well.
Yeah, I like especially that you can do it in Copilot itself, because so many times when you run into a problem like that, it's very in the moment. So
Yep.
having an in the moment way to give feedback, I think, is really, really important.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you're right, right? Like maybe I want to be able to say like, "Hey, I asked this Copilot question and it's not answering it correctly," or I got this weird answer when I was doing a visualization. Great way to be able to just put it down in the same experience, not having to leave and go somewhere else to do that.
Very much. So, anything you want to wrap up with?
Yeah, we do have more search features on the way. We also have some big announcements at CribbleCon. If you haven't signed up for CribbleCon, please sign up for CribbleCon. We have lots of things we plan to talk about, AI specifically, but also lots of other areas of the product. Come see us there. We would love to meet with you, talk to you, hear your feedback, get your ideas, and also keep an eye out for our next release towards the end of July. We have some new things coming to Copilot Editor. We do have some updates coming to search. And just overall, we're really looking forward to getting more AI features out the door. We've seen really good adoption from my folks in financial services and healthcare. We're seeing great adoption from you guys in particular. Keep up the great work. If you have questions about Copilot, if you need something, if you're just like my organization isn't super comfortable with AI and you want to come chat with us, please do. We literally answer questions all day long about AI. So check out what's coming next at the end of this month. If you haven't thought about CribbleCon, aren't coming to CribbleCon, rethink it. It's later this year. And please reach out anytime with any feedback. Hit us through the feedback mechanism on Copilot, through the community, or through your account team.
Yeah, it's going to be lots of fun. I'm looking forward to CribbleCon. It's going to be in DC this year. It's going to be in October, I believe, October 10th. So check out cribble.io/CribbleCon for all the details. It's our first multi-day conference, so we're going to have lots of speakers. We're also going to have a full day of training at Cribble University. So I just hope everyone can be there.
Absolutely. Thanks again for having me, Ed.
Absolutely. Come back soon. All right, take care and thank you.
You too.